Now, let me preface this video by saying that I approach my support of Israel very carefully because I know that we have really two sides of this topic. We have those who aggressively support Israel no matter what the situation is. They can do anything and they will do no wrong. And then there's another side that absolutely despises Israel and they don't even know why, but they just know that they do. I look at Israel somewhere in the middle. As a Christian, I believe that they're God's chosen people, and I believe that we're supposed to bless and pray for those people and that land. But I also recognize that Israel has not been perfect over the decades. They have done many things wrong. And also, as a Christian biblically, I believe that they are not submitting themselves before God. This is just my personal belief. You may or may not, in fact, hold this. That is okay. But I'm just trying to preface it by saying to you that I am not a person who's just an outright supporter of Israel because I understand what they've done wrong. But I also understand in the midst of all of those countries that are surrounding them, including the Palestinians, the Gaza Strip, and the West Bank, they are a beacon of democracy and freedom and liberty, unlike that which you see in thousands of square miles around them. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu just gave a speech in which he gives a message to the world about their standing, that they are not going to back down and that they are not going to cease fire. And the arguments he uses are clear, concise, sobering, and they're hard to deny.
I want to make clear Israel's position regarding a ceasefire. Just as the United States would not agree to a ceasefire after the bombing of Pearl Harbor or after the terrorist attack of 9/11, Israel will not agree to a cessation of hostilities with Hamas after the horrific attacks of October 7th. Calls for a ceasefire are calls for Israel to surrender to Hamas, to surrender to terrorism, to surrender to barbarism. That will not happen. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bible says that there is a time for peace and a time for war. This is a time for war, a war for our common future. Today we draw a line between the forces of civilization and the forces of barbarism. It is a time for everyone to decide where they stand. Israel will stand against the forces of barbarism until victory. I hope and pray that civilized nations everywhere will back this fight. Because Israel's fight is your fight. Because if Hamas and Iran's axis of evil win, you will be their next target. That's why Israel's victory will be your victory. But make no mistake, regardless of who stands with Israel, Israel will fight until this battle is won.
On this channel, I've already made very similar arguments to what Benjamin Netanyahu is making right here, and it's hard to deny that. I mean, how is what Israel is doing right now in this situation any or much different than what the United States did after 9/11? Did the world call for them to cease fire after 2 or 3 weeks of them waging war in Afghanistan? Of course not. Nobody did that. So how is this so much different than that situation? You had a powerful group against a much less powerful group. I mean, maybe some people out there would say, well, it's different, Vin, because Israel has been occupying the Palestinians' land for 75 years, and that's not the case with the United States. If that is the way you think about this topic, if you really truly believe that Israel is occupying Palestine for 75 years, you have such a lack of actual historical understanding. You've clearly been brainwashed by any left-leaning liberal organization out there that spewed whatever they wanted to you, showed you whatever images that they knew you would agree with, and you just sucked it right up and agreed with it wholeheartedly. I'm not going to bore you on this video by going through all the details with you, but I can tell you this right now. In that land that is Israel, and of course, if you're listening and you disagree with me, you want to call it Palestine, there were Jewish people there. Lots of Jewish people there. And there were Arab Palestinians there as well. They were all together, mixed in this land. And during this time period, we saw many different places with many different ethnicities of the Ottoman Empire, Austria, Hungary, Germany, Italy, where people wanted to form their own countries and their own nations with their own groups. It just so happened that in this land, where the Jewish people had ties for 3,000 to 4,000 years, and the Arab Palestinians that were there had ties for, depending on who they were, maybe for 1,000. Some might be able to argue a couple thousand years into the Roman Empire times, but they were both in this land. And so after the World Wars, there was a decision that was made, like many of the decisions that were made at this time, where we saw nationalities coming together to form their own countries. And in this case, Israel, as Jewish people, were going to come together and form their own country, and the Palestinian Arabs would come together and form their own country. Unfortunately, as this was done, the Palestinian Arabs and the other Arab countries around them, including Syria and Lebanon and Jordan and Egypt, they disagreed with this. They didn't want any of this because they didn't think that there could be any land called Israel. Zero. And so from the very start, 75 years ago, from that supposed quote unquote occupation, they attacked the Jewish people who weren't even given the land yet. It was just like proposed to give them the land. They're like, proposed? The proposed nothing. We're going to take all of this land. It's all ours. There's no splitting this off to different cultural and nationalistic groups like we've seen done in all these other areas. No, no, no. We're going to attack them and kill them and destroy them. And this is only going to be Palestinian Arab land. Talk about wanting a two-state solution. There was no two-state solution 75 years ago. They were ready to wipe the Jewish people off the face of the planet. And this was after the Holocaust. So those of you who think 75 years of occupation, you have no clue what you're talking about. And then when these Arab nations attacked the Jewish people won. They beat them. And what have we seen historically, contextually, whenever one group beats another group, especially when they were attacked by that group? The Jewish people didn't attack the Arabs. The Arabs attacked them and they beat them. So what does this mean? This means that they won the right to have their own nationalistic state there. They won that right. Not only did they already have the right to that, but they won the right to that when they were preemptively attacked by the Palestinian Arabs. They won it. And guess what ended up happening? Good old Jordan actually took over the Palestinian Arabs' land. That's right. You know the West Bank? Jordan took it over. Did they hand it over to the Palestinian people? No, they did not. Did they call it Palestine? No, they did not. There's some false images out there that are showing you that after this war, that was called Palestine. It wasn't Palestine. The Jordanians would laugh at that. That was Jordan. They won it. They took it over. And Egypt, by the way, took over the Gaza Strip. And they didn't give that over to the Palestinian Arabs either. There's some maps that show that was called Palestine. No, it wasn't. The Egyptians would laugh at you. That was the Egyptians' land. They won it in that war. So not even the Arab nations were willing to give over that land to the Palestinian Arabs. Oh, but it was just Israel that was occupying that land. You see what I'm saying to you? Those of you that hold this, you have literally zero clue about what you're talking about. You don't even know about history. You just suck up the gobbledygook that's presented to you out there, and you just believe it, like a child believing in Santa Claus. If the fairy dust is thrown into your face, you breathe it in and you blow it out. You bloviate it to everybody, but you have no clue. And so obviously, as Israel's there, they're like, okay, fine, the Jordanians, you want to host the Palestinian Arabs? Go for it. Egypt, you want to do the same thing? Go for it. And guess what? Eventually, none of those countries wanted to do it anymore. And then, of course, you have more conflicts that come around the 1960s. And eventually, Jordan and Egypt leave those two areas and hand it over to Palestinian Arabs, at which case the Palestinian Arabs can't even run their own country. In the West Bank, they had rival police groups fighting against each other. It was chaos. They couldn't even form a centralized government there to govern their own people. It was absolute insanity. Over and over and over again, Israel has been wanting a two-state solution. Now, I'm not saying Israel's been perfect in this. No, no, no. Do not get me wrong here. Do not think that I don't understand that Israel has made some mistakes, some big mistakes in this. But to say that Israel has somehow had a 75-year occupation over these people is insanity. It's devoid of actual knowledge historically of what's going on. And now for the clincher. If there's any lefties who are still in this video, and if those of you are still watching the video and you support me, this is one of the reasons why you might want to share this video with some of your liberal and lefty friends, because one of their deity figures agrees with me on this topic and agrees with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on this topic. And of course, I think if they see one of their deities saying this very same stuff, they might then venerate what she's saying, bow down to it, and then agree to it. So here you go.
People who are calling for a ceasefire now do not understand Hamas. That is not possible. It would be such a gift to Hamas because they would spend whatever time there was a ceasefire in effect rebuilding their armaments, creating stronger positions to be able to fend off eventual assault by the Israelis. So we're in a very different world. I don't think it had to be the world we're in, but that's where we are, and we've got to figure our way forward.
Well, there you go. Game, set, and match. You definitely have to share this video with somebody who needs to see this and hear this information, because how can you deny this now? Now, not only do you have somebody who if you're on the left-leaning side of things, somebody who you disagree with, sharing truth with you about the situation, you have somebody who you agree with sharing you the same truth. So where are you going to run to now? Well, what are you going to do? It's just a terrible situation. No sane person thinks that this situation that's happening right now with Israel and the Palestinian people is a good situation. It's bad, especially that it's involving kids, innocent individuals. And if I was them, if I was Israel, I would probably make a few changes. I would actually open up a lot more humanitarian aid to come through. Although many of the Palestinian Arabs absolutely hate Israel. Like, let me not pretend like most of the people over there hate Hamas. They don't. They actually love Hamas. They really, truly do. And they hate Israel. But still, we are in a different time period now. It's 2023. It's not, 800s. It's a different time period. You need to provide food and water for those who are not fighting against you militaristically, and support them and help them in any way you can while you continue to engage upon those who are. But ceasefire? No, that's ridiculous. And Israel is restraining itself greatly. As many of the images as you see out there and the reports that Hamas is giving of 8,000 dead or something like that, Israel could destroy all 2 million of those people if they really wanted to. But they're not. The fact that Hamas is saying only 8,000 are dead, and we don't even know if that number is true, if it's believable. But even if that number is true, that is showing unbelievable restraint and precision on the hand of the Israelis, especially as these terrorists dig their tunnels under hospitals and under mosques and under schools, and they hide behind civilians as shields. They prevent them from moving south away from this situation. And still, Hamas is only saying 8,000 dead, if that number is even real. Think about how unbelievably restrained Israel is being right now, how precise they are being. It's like a tactician. It's like a surgical procedure that they're doing right now. And they need to continue the surgical procedure, and we need to allow humanitarian aid in at the same time. But those of you out there who don't know what you're talking about, you need to wake up, not be woke. You need to wake up for real and understand the reality of the situation. And that doesn't mean that I'm somehow drunk with the wine of believing everything that the Israelis do. I am certainly not. I am very sober to their situation and the corruptness that has crept into that nation and the wrongs that that nation has done and are doing. I'm very aware of it. And I'm willing to say it. I'm willing to concede that point, which is where we need others who are on the other side of this thing to be willing to concede where they're wrong as well. So I invite you to do that. If you're watching this video, I invite you to do that. It's okay. It'll feel very good. You'll feel very free after you do it. So I hope you enjoyed this one. As always, I love to hear the comments. I truly read all of them right now. Every single one of them. I go through them all. Leave one below if you would like to. I'll catch you on the next one.